galaxy was vast, stitched together by empires and councils that treated borders like pencil lines on star maps, erasable, redrawn, and forgotten as time marched on. To most of the Galactic Council, space was a canvas of opportunity, and the Sol sector was just another quiet corner waiting to be claimed. When orders went out to dispatch an expedition fleet, it was seen as routine. The fleet was formidable in its appearance. Hundreds of silver vessels cut through the darkness, their drives glowing with arrogant brilliance, as if daring the void to object. They carried explorers, survey drones, and planetary scanners, all the tools of a force accustomed to cataloging and consuming. To them, this system was unremarkable: silent stars, primitive planets, untapped resources. It was, they believed, theirs for the taking, but the Sol system was not silent, and it was not defenseless. For generations, humanity had prepared for the possibility of this moment. Long before the Council's eyes turned outward, humans had seeded their borders with hidden stations, listening posts tucked behind asteroids, and satellites disguised as space debris. It was a strategy born not from ambition, but from survival. History had taught them the value of vigilance. To outsiders, Earth's people might have seemed divided, noisy, and unpredictable. Yet when it came to protecting their home, humanity was united by something stronger than politics: instinct. On the frozen edges of the system, alarms flickered to life. Inside the monitoring station orbiting Pluto, a young officer named Carrick froze as alien signatures appeared on his console. His voice trembled at first but steadied as he spoke. "They've crossed the line. Multiple vessels. Formation tight. Heading inward." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of his words pressing on every soul present. They had trained for this, theorized about it, and even joked nervously about it during long shifts. Now it was real. A secure message pulsed through encrypted channels racing across the solar system. From Pluto's watchtower to Mars's fortified bunkers, and from Luna's command centers to Earth's hidden bastions, the warning spread. Intruders detected. Foreign fleet within Sol and Luna Command, Admiral Kepler stood with his hands folded behind his back, his eyes fixed on the shimmering projection above the war table. The alien fleet was displayed in perfect detail: sleek hulls, intricate formations, and the brazen arrogance of ships broadcasting their council identification codes. They weren't even attempting stealth. They believed their authority was enough. Reports came quickly. "They've deployed drones near the belt," one officer said, adjusting the display. "Mapping scans. They're probing without hesitation." "Another group has locked onto 3 of our outposts," a second added. For a long moment, Admiral Kepler said nothing. His silence weighed more than words. Around him, officers exchanged uneasy glances, each aware of what this meant. The Council had ignored every warning, every diplomatic note, every carefully phrased ultimatum humanity had sent. At last, the Admiral spoke. His voice was low but carried across the room like iron. The Directorate's orders were clear. "No one enters Sol without permission. They had their warnings. They chose arrogance instead of caution." The room stiffened. Not one officer objected. Everyone knew the protocol drilled into them since their earliest days in service. If the line is crossed, consequences follow. Always. Meanwhile, out in the void, the alien fleet continued its advance, blind to the storm it had awakened. Their captains exchanged casual reports, their crews confident. This system was unremarkable, they thought. There was no resistance worth fearing. They did not know that every word they spoke, every maneuver they made was already being tracked. Humanity's net had closed around them before they had even realized they were in danger. Across the system, activation codes were entered, commands whispered, and preparations finalized. The first communication would not be fire. Humanity would offer one last message, one final chance to turn back. But every commander knew the truth. The moment those ships crossed the invisible border, their fate had been sealed, and in every war room, from Earth to the cold stations at the edge of Pluto, one phrase echoed silently in the minds of those who stood watch. No one crosses into human space uninvited unless they are ready for a one-way trip into nothingness. The alien fleet pressed deeper into the Sol system with unshaken confidence. Their sleek vessels glided past the asteroid belt like predators cutting through calm waters, scanning, recording, and mapping every detail with mechanical efficiency. To them, it was just another operation, another resource-rich system ready to be cataloged and claimed. On the bridge of the flagship Council Dawn, High Commander Syraxis studied the holographic display with cold detachment. Primitive orbitals, scattered settlements, no meaningful defenses, he muttered. His second-in-command nodded, adjusting his console. They've seeded this system with satellites, but their technology is crude. The locals probably think they're hidden. It will be simple to dismantle once our claim is filed. Syraxis allowed himself a thin smile. He had heard of these humans before, obstinate, proud, and unaligned with any galactic authority. They were said to be defiant, issuing ultimatums, as if their words carried weight. It amused him. Words were nothing compared to the might of fleets. Soon Earth would learn the futility of defiance, but far from the arrogance of the Council Dawn, humanity was already moving. In the command chamber beneath Luna's armored surface, Admiral Kepler stood before a room of watchful officers. Sharp tone rang through the air as the long-range relay confirmed what they already knew. The intruders had passed the asteroid belt. "The line is crossed," one officer said flatly. "All fleet groups report readiness," another added. Kepler gave a single nod, then gestured toward the communication officer. "Patch me through to the lead vessel." The air shimmered as the secure link activated, translating across alien frequencies. For a moment, the screen showed only static. Then, the stern visage of High Commander Syraxis filled the display. His expression was one of mild surprise at first, then quickly shifted into amusement. "This is Syraxis of the Council Dawn," the alien commander said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Identify yourselves." Admiral Kepler did not flinch. His tone was calm, steady, and uncompromising. "You are trespassing in sovereign human space. Your fleet has entered without authorization. This is your first and only warning. Reverse course immediately and leave our system, or face the consequences of your actions." A silence followed, heavy and electric. On the bridge of the Council Dawn, several alien officers chuckled quietly. Syraxis's smirk widened. "Consequences?" he repeated, leaning forward as though amused by a child's threat. "You dare speak of consequences to the Council? Your world is young, your species insignificant. We are here by decree, and you will yield. Stand down, or be removed." In Luna Command, no one flinched. Kepler's gaze was hard as steel. His words came with finality. "You were warned by our directorate. You ignored every message, and now you've violated our borders. Understand this clearly, Commander Syraxis. No one crosses into human space uninvited. Turn back now, or you will not return at all." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed aboard the Council Dawn, Syraxis laughed. "Empty threats," he said dismissively, waving a hand at his officers. "Increase our scan radius. If they intend to resist, let them reveal their strength so we can crush it." But the amusement that echoed through the Council fleet was not shared across the Sol system. Within hidden bunkers, orbital platforms, and deep space stations, humanity's forces were already locking into battle readiness. Fleets hidden behind Neptune's shadow adjusted their positions. Defense arrays came online. Energy signatures, carefully concealed until this moment, flickered to life across Mars and Luna. Kepler stood unmoving as the final confirmations came in. Every fleet group, every defense wing, every concealed station, the trap was complete. This was their chance, he said quietly. They chose arrogance. Now we show them the cost. Far from Earth, Syraxis leaned back in his command chair, wholly unaware that his fleet had already been surrounded. To him, humanity's words had been nothing more than bluster. He believed he was advancing into a system unprepared for war. But the Sol system was not unprepared. It had been waiting, watching, patient, and humanity, united in silence across the stars, was ready to prove what every outsider had failed to understand. The last warning had been given. The next message would be delivered in fire. The alien fleet pressed further inward, their formation spreading wide to cover more ground. To them, Sul was nothing more than a territory to be charted and parceled out. The humans' ultimatum was nothing more than background noise. The same kind of empty defiance Syraxis had heard from dozens of other species. He had crushed them all. Humanity would be no different. "Deploy survey drones," Syraxis ordered. "Let them see our banners in orbit of their world. That will remind them where power resides." Swarms of metallic drones streaked forward, releasing waves of scanners that brushed across the outer planets. On Mars, hidden defense stations went dark, suppressing their signatures. In the shadow of Saturn's rings, concealed carriers floated silently. The Council fleet swept on, blind to the trap closing around them. Inside Luna Command, Admiral Kepler studied the tactical projection with cold precision. Tiny red points, alien ships, were spreading like ink across the holographic map. He could see how they moved, how they scanned, how they assumed dominance without caution. Every arrogant maneuver told him the same thing. The aliens had no idea what was waiting. "Admiral," a voice cut through the tension. It was Captain Rourke, commanding the hidden fleet stationed behind Neptune. "They've crossed the outer defense perimeter." "Orders?" Kepler's jaw tightened. "Hold your fire until I give the word. They must be the ones to act first. History will record who broke this peace." As if on cue, the Council Dawn issued its next command. On Syraxis's order, 3 of the fleet's cruisers broke formation, heading directly toward Mars. The commander's voice echoed across the system as his words were broadcast on every frequency. "People of Earth," he declared, "you stand before the Council of Stars. Your claims of sovereignty are meaningless. Your resistance will only bring ruin. Stand down now, or your colonies will be the first to suffer." In Luna Command, the officers' faces hardened. Mars was not undefended, but neither was it meant to be sacrificed. Kepler took a slow breath, his hand hovering over the command console. Confirmation received. An officer whispered, breaking the silence. "They've threatened civilian settlements. They've crossed the line." Kepler's voice was calm, but there was iron beneath every word. "Then the choice is made." He lowered his hand. "Execute Operation Black Sky." Across the Sol system, the hidden teeth of humanity bared themselves. From the ice plains of Europa, defense platforms rose from beneath camouflaged surfaces, their cannons locking onto alien signatures. From behind Neptune's shadow, entire fleets lit their engines, rising like leviathans from the dark. Even the asteroid belt came alive as disguised mining stations unfolded into weaponized platforms. The first shot came from Mars. A concealed rail battery hidden within the planet's rocky crust discharged, launching a tungsten slug at near light speed. The weapon's roar echoed across underground chambers as the projectile streaked through space and tore into the lead alien cruiser. The ship split in half before it had time to register the attack, fire and debris scattering into the void. The Council fleet froze for a fraction of a second. Shock rippled through the alien formation as alarms blared across their vessels. Another cruiser fell a moment later, struck by a coordinated barrage from Neptune's hidden fleet. then another, ripped apart by Europa's defenses. Panic spread among the alien officers. "Ambush! They were waiting for us!" On the council dawn, Syraxis gripped his command chair, fury blazing in his eyes. "Counterattack!" he roared. "Turn all weapons on their colonies! Show them the price of defiance!" But before his ships could reposition, humanity struck again. Dozens of hidden vessels decloaked, emerging like wolves from the shadows. Railguns, missile barrages, and energy lances converged with merciless precision. The carefully prepared trap slammed shut, and the mighty fleet that had entered Sul with arrogance suddenly found itself on the defensive. In Luna Command, Kepler gave the final authorization. Transmit the message to every channel, every frequency, across the void. Humanity's words echoed with chilling finality. No one crosses into human space uninvited. "You were warned! Now you pay the price!" The void of space lit with fire as the first true battle for Sol began. Humanity had not only defended its home, they had sprung a trap so precise, so devastating, that the Council would never forget the lesson. And as the Ninth Fleet burned, one truth rang clear across the stars. Humanity did not bluff. The opening hours of the battle left the alien fleet reeling. The Council's Ninth Fleet, so confident in its superiority, had already lost half a dozen cruisers to humanity's ambush. What was supposed to be a show of dominance had turned into a desperate scramble for survival. Yet the fleet was not broken. Syraxis, commander of the Ninth Fleet, was no stranger to war, and his fury only sharpened his focus. "Pull the forward wings into defensive formation," Syraxis barked. His voice cut through the chaos on the bridge of the Council dawn. "They want to play predators? Then let us remind them who dominates the stars. Activate suppression fields and prepare the gravitic warheads." Across the alien armada, the scattered vessels reorganized, forming a defensive shell around the fleet's carriers and flagships. Massive panels unfolded from their hulls, radiating pulses that warped sensors and jammed communications. Within moments, Earth's hidden fleets found their targeting systems clouded by interference. Railguns that had fired with pinpoint accuracy a moment before now struggled to lock onto targets. Inside Luna Command, Admiral Kepler's eyes narrowed at the shifting holographic map. "They've adapted faster than expected," he muttered. "They've been bloodied, but they are far from beaten." Reports poured in from every theater of the battle. A squadron of alien bombers broke through Neptune's defenses, raining plasma charges onto human carriers before being cut down. A rail battery on Europa was silenced after concentrated fire from 3 alien destroyers pulverized its icy shell. Even the asteroid belt defenses, thought untouchable, now faced wave after wave of relentless barrages. "Admiral!" Captain Rourke's voice came through the comm, strained but steady. "They've shifted their strategy. They're not just retaliating, they're testing us. They want to see if we can bleed." Kepler's reply was calm, even as explosions echoed in the distance beyond Luna's walls. "Then we show them that bleeding does not mean breaking. The Council fleet unleashed their gravitic warheads, colossal weapons capable of tearing apart entire regions of space. A ripple of distortion tore across Mars' orbit, shredding human satellites and snapping defense platforms into fragments. The colonists on the surface could only watch as the sky above lit with fire. On the bridge of the Council dawn, Syraxis leaned forward, satisfaction cutting through his rage. Now they understand what it means to defy the Council. Push them, harder. Drive them back until their world is ash beneath their feet. Yet, even as the Ninth Fleet pressed the counterattack, humanity refused to fold. From behind Earth's moon, swarms of drone ships launched in coordinated waves, overwhelming alien destroyers with sheer numbers. On Neptune's edge, human carriers began deploying experimental stealth craft, their signatures invisible even to Council sensors. These ships darted into enemy formations, crippling engines before vanishing back into the void. The councils. Losses mounted again, but their sheer numbers kept the battle from tipping. For every alien cruiser that burned, humanity paid in kind, losing a carrier, a platform, or a squadron of fighters. The void became a graveyard, littered with drifting, wreckage from both sides. Inside Luna Command, the atmosphere was tense but unyielding. Officers shouted updates over the roar of alarms. Mars colony reports heavy damage. Europa defenses failing. Neptune fleet requesting reinforcements. Kepler's face was grim, but there was no hesitation in his voice. We knew this would not be won without sacrifice. Hold every line. Make them fight for every inch they take. For Syraxis, the sight of humanity holding on despite staggering losses was infuriating. Any other species would have bent the knee after witnessing the power of the Ninth Fleet. Yet these humans clung to every rock, every outpost, every hidden weapon, as if surrender were a concept they had never learned. This is not possible, Syraxis hissed. Their world is primitive, their numbers limited. How can they resist us? One of his advisors spoke cautiously. Perhaps it is not their strength that we underestimated, Commander, but their will. The words hung in the air, unspoken truth twisting into unease. The Ninth Fleet had faced countless rebellions before, but none like this. None that fought with such fury. As the battle dragged into its second day, both sides were locked in a deadly stalemate. The Council had unleashed its wrath, leveling entire defenses, but humanity had not broken. Instead, they had revealed a terrifying truth. They were willing to fight to the last, no matter the cost. On Earth, billions watched the transmissions, their hearts steeled by the sight of their defenders. Humanity's voice rose as one, echoing through the stars with unshakable resolve. And in Luna Command, Kepler gave his next order with quiet determination. They wanted to see if we could bleed. Now we show them that from blood, we forge victory. The void of space was littered with wreckage. Human carriers burned in silent agony, their broken hulls drifting alongside the shattered remnants of alien cruisers. The battle had raged for days, each side striking blows that would have ended most wars. Yet the Council's Ninth Fleet endured, and humanity, against all odds, still held the line. Inside Luna Command, Admiral Kepler studied the tactical map, its surface flickering with red and blue indicators. Entire defense networks were gone, and casualties grew with each passing hour. Still, there was something in his eyes, a glimmer that his staff recognized. It wasn't despair. It was calculation. They believe their gravitic warheads have cornered us, Kepler said quietly, his voice carrying over the controlled chaos of the command center. They don't realize they've given us exactly what we need. Captain Rourke raised a brow. Sir, Kepler gestured at the readings. Those distortions are tearing space itself, creating ripples we can predict. The very weapon they use to crush us can be turned against them. Rourke leaned closer to the display. As the data unfolded, the realization struck him. If we time our jumps precisely, use the gravitic tiers as slings, we can launch ambushes where they least expect. Our ships could appear inside their formations before they have a chance to react. A smile flickered across Kepler's face, grim but resolute. Exactly. They think they control the battlefield. Let's remind them that space is our home. Within hours, orders spread across the scattered human fleets. Engineers recalibrated FTL drives to sync with the gravitic distortions, while pilots prepared for maneuvers that no simulator had dared to test. It was a gamble. A miscalculation could scatter ships into nothingness. But humanity had little left to lose. On the second night of the battle, the gamble was played. Over Jupiter's orbit, a squadron of alien destroyers tightened their formation, unaware of the invisible ripples cutting through space nearby. Without warning, 3 human frigates burst into existence inside their perimeter, weapons blazing. Before the aliens could respond, the destroyers were reduced to molten fragments, their screams lost in the vacuum. Across the battlefield, similar strikes unfolded. Human fleets appeared where no enemy expected them, striking. Like wolves among startled prey, alien carriers, once thought untouchable, suddenly found themselves gutted by railgun fire launched from impossible angles. On the bridge of the Council Dawn, Commander Syraxis rose from his chair, fury and disbelief etched across his scaled face. How are they doing this? This is not possible. His advisors scrambled to explain, their voices shaking. They are using the distortions we created. They're turning our weapons into pathways. Syraxis slammed his claw against the console. Impossible. No species could adapt so quickly, not in the heat of battle. But even as he raged, another council cruiser vanished in a bloom of fire, ambushed from within its own shield formation. The Ninth Fleet, so feared across the galaxy, was being unraveled piece by piece. On Earth, the broadcasts spread like wildfire. Humanity watched in awe as their defenders struck back with impossible precision, turning the Council's pride into chaos. For the first time since the invasion began, hope soared higher than fear. In Luna Command, Kepler allowed himself a rare smile as reports flooded in. "We've bloodied them," he said. "Now we press until they stagger." The turning point had come, but victory was far from certain. Humanity's fleets were still battered, their resources stretched thin. Each daring maneuver carried risks that could obliterate entire squadrons if miscalculated. And yet, the alien fleet now fought not with arrogance, but with caution, forced to second-guess every move, to fear the very space around them. Syraxis knew he had underestimated humanity. His fleet could still crush Earth through sheer attrition, but the cost was climbing higher with every engagement. For the first time in his long career, the commander of the Ninth Fleet felt the stirrings of doubt. "These humans," he whispered to himself, "are not like the others. They are something else entirely." The Council fleet pulled back to regroup, their formation tighter, their strikes less reckless. Humanity had wrestled away the initiative, proving not just their resilience, but their ingenuity. The galaxy had always believed strength was measured by the size of fleets and the firepower of weapons. But humans had shown something far more dangerous, the ability to take the impossible and make it a weapon. As the alien armada regrouped, Admiral Kepler prepared his next set of orders. The Council had wanted a lesson in dominance. Instead, they were receiving a reminder written in fire and wreckage that human space was not a frontier to conquer, but a gauntlet that consumed all who entered. The tide had turned, and the war was no longer a question of survival. It was now a question of who would break first. The Council's Ninth Fleet had not been destroyed, but the myth of its invincibility was gone. Word spread quickly across the stars, carried by encrypted signals, whispered among diplomats, and transmitted in secret among rival powers. Humanity, the young species barely recognized in galactic politics, had stood against the Ninth Fleet and forced it into retreat. In the vast chamber of the Galactic Council, silence reigned as envoys from dozens of civilizations watched the tactical. Reports play across the holodisplays. Entire squadrons of the Ninth Fleet lay in ruins, ambushed by human ships that had bent physics itself to their will. For centuries, no enemy had dared to strike the Council in such a manner. Yet here, in the unassuming Sol system, the impossible had been done. Envoy Drixal of the Soreth leaned forward, his translucent tendrils twitching in fascination. "They adapt faster than anything I've ever recorded. They took a weapon meant for destruction and made it a tool for ambush. That is disturbing." Across the chamber, the representative of the Keth Dominion rumbled, his heavy frame vibrating with unease. "Disturbing? It is worse. If the Council cannot subdue them with the Ninth Fleet, what does that say about the balance of power? Perhaps these humans are not prey, but predators in disguise. The counselor presiding over the session struck the floor with his staff, silencing the rising murmur. These humans will be dealt with. Their insolence cannot be tolerated. But, make no mistake, this is not a crisis, it is a delay. Yet even as he spoke, doubt flickered across the faces of many. The galaxy had long relied on the Council's fleets as the arbiters of order, but now an ember of possibility had been lit. The Council could be resisted. Back in Sol, the humans were well aware of this shift. At Luna Command, Admiral Kepler reviewed intercepted transmissions, his jaw tightening as the implications became clear. "They're afraid of us now," he muttered. "Not just the Council, the entire galaxy is watching. Some are waiting for us to fall. Others are wondering if they should reach out to us instead." Captain Rourke grinned wryly. "Enemies and allies, Admiral. For once, we get to choose who becomes which." But Kepler's expression remained grave. "We've bloodied the Ninth Fleet, but the Council won't stop here. They'll return in greater numbers with more ruthless tactics. And when they do, we can't rely on surprise alone. We need to show the galaxy that Earth isn't a victim. It's a fortress. That resolve carried into every corner of human space. Civilian factories retooled to produce weapons, orbital shipyards expanded at breakneck speed, and engineers refined the techniques that had given them their edge. What had begun as a desperate defense was transforming into something else. Declaration of human sovereignty. Meanwhile, aboard the Council Dawn, Commander Syraxis paced the war room, his claws clicking against the deck. Reports flooded in of officers shaken by their losses, of soldiers whispering that the humans were cursed or possessed. Discipline held, but the aura of inevitability was shattered. Syraxis snarled at his aides. "We are not losing, we are adjusting. This war is not over." Yet when he was alone, he admitted a truth he could not speak aloud. He had underestimated humanity. Their tenacity was unlike anything he had encountered. Other species fought bravely, yes, but they broke when pressed. Humans bent, adapted, and struck back harder. The Council had sought to make an example of them, to warn others of the futility of resistance. Instead, the message spreading through the galaxy was far more dangerous. Humans were not only capable of defiance, they could win. In hidden chambers on distant worlds, leaders whispered of opportunity. The Tarlac Confederacy, long under Council taxation, quietly opened channels to human diplomats. Smuggler networks began ferrying supplies into Sol space, not out of loyalty, but out of curiosity. What would these humans do if given the means to expand? Humanity's legend was being written in real time, and it was spreading faster than any Council decree could suppress. Children on distant colonies spoke of Earth's defenders as heroes, while rebels on oppressed worlds painted the human emblem across their banners. Admiral Kepler understood the danger and the promise. "We didn't ask for this war," he told his staff during a late-night briefing, "but we've become a symbol. If we fall, we prove the Council is still unchallenged. If we endure, the galaxy changes forever." As the fractured remains of the Ninth Fleet retreated to regroup, Syraxis stared out at the stars, his mind troubled. For the first time in centuries, the Ninth Fleet had tasted uncertainty, and across the stars, the galaxy held its breath, watching, to see if humanity's defiance was a spark soon to be extinguished, or the first flame of a new era. The Ninth Fleet had returned, larger and deadlier than before. Reinforcements drawn from across Council territory swelled its numbers to an armada unmatched in living memory. Hundreds of capital ships bristling with weapons gathered at the edge of human space, their silhouette blotting out stars. To the galaxy at large, it was not a battle fleet. It was a storm of inevitability, a tidal wave meant to wash Earth from existence. Commander Syraxis, though still shaken by their first engagement, saw this as his chance to restore the Council's authority. His orders were absolute: crush the humans utterly, leave nothing standing, and remind the galaxy what became of those who defied the Council's will. But on Earth, there was no panic, only preparation. Humanity had seen this moment coming. The first clash with the Ninth Fleet had been survival. This time, it would be demonstration. Admiral Kepler stood at the heart of Luna Command, eyes fixed on the tactical holomap. Vast red clusters marked enemy ships, while blue symbols showed humanity's scattered defenses. On the surface, it looked hopeless, an ant facing a leviathan. Yet Kepler's calm voice carried resolve. "Remember," he said to his officers, "we don't need to defeat them everywhere. We need to break their spirit. Make them doubt. Make them fear us." The trap was already set. Months of preparation had gone into weaving the battlefield itself into a weapon. Hidden defense satellites lurked behind moons and asteroids, their energy signatures cloaked. Civilian mining platforms had been converted into launch bays. Even the gravitational tides of Jupiter and Saturn had been charted, ready to sling human ships at speeds the Council could scarcely predict. When the Ninth Fleet crossed the threshold into Sol, the trap closed. The opening salvo was unlike anything Syraxis expected. Council ships detected sudden surges across every planet and moon, thousands of signals activating at once. Before they could react, kinetic projectiles, tungsten rods accelerated to near-light velocities, struck the vanguard. Dozens of warships disintegrated instantly, their shields useless against the sheer kinetic force. Then came the human fleet, bursting from the shadow of Saturn's rings and Jupiter's magnetic field, darting between Council formations with a speed that broke traditional doctrine. Small, nimble ships cut into the gaps of the Ninth Fleet, forcing massive cruisers to fire on one another in the chaos. Captain Rourke's voice crackled over the comms, half a laugh, half a growl. "They wanted to walk into our home? Then let's show them what a bad neighborhood looks like." The humans fought like predators defending their den, but more than that, they fought like innovators. One Council dreadnought, shielded by layers of energy barriers, was disabled when a human vessel overloaded its reactor and detonated point blank, sending out a focused electromagnetic pulse that crippled every system within a kilometer radius. Elsewhere, swarms of drones, once mining bots, latched onto enemy hulls and drilled inside, exploding deep within the superstructures. The Council's numerical advantage was crumbling under tactics no simulation had prepared them for. Commander Syraxis barked orders, his voice rising in desperation. "Tighten formations! Do not break ranks!" But the tighter the fleet compressed, the easier it became for humans to use their environment. Asteroids, redirected by tug ships months earlier, now cut through their lines like natural battering rams. Then, the final stroke. Humanity unleashed the weapon they had kept hidden until. Now, the Erebus Array, a network of solar collectors positioned near Mercury. In an instant, mirrors concentrated the sun's energy into beams of blinding intensity, lancing through space and piercing Council vessels that had once seemed untouchable. Entire wings of the Ninth Fleet melted under the onslaught. Panic rippled through Syraxis's command channels. The Ninth Fleet, his Ninth Fleet, was unraveling. Officers who once barked with certainty now begged for orders, their discipline shattered by the realization that they were prey. Admiral Kepler, watching from Luna, whispered the words that would echo through history. This is the line they were never meant to cross. Within hours, the mighty Ninth Fleet fractured. Some ships fled into deep space, abandoning their comrades. Others surrendered, their crews unwilling to face annihilation. By the time the battle ended, what remained of the Ninth Fleet was drifting wreckage, scattered like broken glass across Sol. The galaxy had its answer. Humanity was no longer a curiosity, no longer a species to be dismissed. They were warriors who had faced the most powerful fleet in the Council's arsenal, and not only survived, but triumphed. Across the stars, whispers became roars. Resistance movements painted the human emblem on their ships. Worlds long cowed. By the Council dared to imagine rebellion. And Syraxis, staring at the ruins of his once proud armada, understood the terrible truth. Humanity had changed everything. The storm meant to erase Earth had instead reshaped the galaxy. The wreckage of the Ninth Fleet drifted through Sol like a graveyard of steel. Shattered hulls glimmered in the starlight, their broken silhouettes a silent testimony to the fury they had faced. For humanity, this was not just a victory. It was a declaration. They had faced the galaxy's most powerful armada, and it was the invaders, not Earth, that had been left in ruins. In Luna Command, Admiral Kepler allowed himself a rare moment of stillness. His officers worked quietly around him, relaying casualty reports, coordinating rescue efforts, and monitoring Council transmissions. There was exhaustion etched on every face, but beneath it burned a quiet, unshakable pride. Humanity had defended its home, and in doing so, it had changed the galaxy forever. Captain Rourke limped into the command chamber, one arm in a sling, but his grin undimmed. "Well," he said, voice rough with smoke and adrenaline. "I'd say that went better than expected." Kepler gave a tired smile. "Better for us, perhaps. For them, not so much." Even as they spoke, the Council was reeling. In distant star systems, entire governments were shaken by the news. The Ninth Fleet, a name once synonymous with inevitability, had been erased in less than a day. Messages poured in from worlds long silenced by fear, whispers of rebellion igniting into open defiance. Across the galaxy, the Council's iron grip was loosening, its power undermined by a single undeniable truth. Humanity could not be broken. Commander Syraxis, once proud and unyielding, now stood aboard a crippled flagship limping toward Council space. His surviving officers avoided his gaze, knowing the questions that awaited them upon their return. How had an untested species annihilated a fleet built to subdue empires? How could the Council ever reclaim its image of invincibility after such a disaster? For Syraxis, the shame was unbearable, yet in his heart, a deeper fear gnawed. That humanity's rise was only beginning. On Earth, there was no celebration of conquest, only solemn acknowledgement of survival. Memorials were raised for those who had fallen, not only in the battle, but in the quiet sacrifices that had made victory possible. Families gathered beneath the stars, looking upward with both grief and hope, aware that their loved ones had fought, not just for Earth, but for the place of humanity among the stars. The Erebus array, still gleaming near Mercury, became a symbol. To some, it was a weapon of deterrence, proof that Earth could defend itself against any threat. To others, it was a reminder of the cost of war, a sun-forged blade that should only be drawn when no other choice remained. Admiral Kepler addressed the United Earth Assembly weeks later, his words broadcast not only across Earth, but carried on encrypted channels to sympathetic worlds throughout Council space. "We did not seek this war," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. "We warned them. We gave them a chance to step back. They crossed into our home believing us weak. They believed we would kneel. Today, the galaxy knows better. Humanity will not be conquered. Humanity will not be erased." The response was thunderous. On Earth, citizens rose to their feet, united as never before. In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, insurgents painted Earth's symbol on their banners. Even within the Council's own heart worlds, whispers grew louder. What if the humans were right? What if the Council was not invincible? In the months that followed, emissaries from distant systems arrived in secret, seeking alliances with Earth. Some offered resources, others knowledge, all bound by a single thread: the hope that humanity might lead them toward freedom. For Kepler, the future was clear. "We are no longer just defenders of Earth," he told his staff one evening. "We are something more now, a spark the galaxy has not seen in centuries. If we are careful, if we are wise, humanity may not only survive, humanity may guide, Captain." Rourke leaned back with a smirk. "Guide or terrify?" Kepler chuckled softly. "Perhaps both. Sometimes fear is the only language tyrants understand." And so the galaxy shifted. The Council still existed, but its shadow was weaker, fractured by doubt. Humanity, once dismissed as an irrelevant backwater species, had carved its name into the stars. The Ninth Fleet's silence would forever echo as a warning. No one crossed into human space uninvited, not unless they were ready to vanish into nothingness. As Earth's blue oceans turned quietly beneath the sun, humanity stood on the edge of a new dawn, not as victims of fate but as masters of their own destiny. The galaxy would never be the same.